Stay tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. Joan served the state of California as a member on the Arts Council and on the Film Commission. She was formerly on the Architectural Commission and fulfilled 2 terms on the Fine Arts Commission for the city of Beverly Hills. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview magazine, Conde Nast Publications, and the Hearst Corporation, Joan covered the world of fashion, the mysteries of food, the excitement of theater, and the international art scene. She continues to find people who are on the cutting edge of their professions. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. We're here on location at the Hollywood Museum as the guest of Donell Dadigan. Waiting to be profiled are composer Adam Schoenberg and artist Dougie Fields. Massachusetts-born and raised composer Adam Schoenberg is a graduate of Oberlin Conservatory of Music. He earned his master's and PhD, at the Juilliard School, where he studied composition with John Corigliano and Robert Beiser. All I can say is wow, because Corigliano's work has been commissioned by the Phil, and I've seen him at Disney Hall. And did he influence you at all?
Oh, absolutely. Both John and Bob Beiser are 2 of my greatest mentors. In addition, my father's also a composer, and he has been a wonderful mentor.
Oh, your father's a composer too?
Yes.
Where did he compose?
Well, my parents live in Massachusetts, where I was raised, and he used to write for Sesame Street. He has written in musical theater and has scored a number of documentaries on PBS and HBO, and was in the early 80s he was a piano improviser and toured all over the country.
So you didn't have a chance. You had to be a composer.
I actually fought with the notion of it for a long time.
Did you?
And I didn't start composing until my sophomore year in college.
But what did you want to be? Sophomore year in college?
Yeah.
What were you going to be up until that time?
I was undeclared. I actually first just went to Oberlin College, and my major, I was thinking maybe philosophy. I was also an athlete. I played soccer at Oberlin.
Oh, you did?
Yep.
So what happened? What was the turning point? You didn't know what to do.
Yeah, I think the turning point probably was that I was really always a composer, and I don't think I wanted to acknowledge it. My parents told me, growing up as a kid, every night before I went to bed, I would always sit down at the piano and just improvise. So it was always part of my identity. I think I probably avoided it for a while because I wasn't sure if that was the exact path for me. But then, right when I changed my major my sophomore year, I immediately got the bug and knew in that moment this is what I was going to do.
Talking about sitting at the piano, do you compose on the piano or do you play a different instrument? What do you play?
I just play the piano, and I always sketch at the piano. I'm a very intuitive composer, so I tend to sit down and improvise for hours, and ideas will start to come about, and then I'll sketch those out on paper, and then I'll become the architect and shape this composition. You're essentially making a building and filling in all of the rooms.
So all these little notes that you're playing just coming out of your head, they're not planned?
Yeah.
At that point, they're not planned?
Oh, no, it's very spontaneous. Yeah, and that's the difference between improvising and composing.
And what would you call, what would you call your work? How do you describe what you do?
Well, really, more than anything, I'm an orchestral composer. I primarily make a living writing for orchestras.
And your work has been performed by the Kansas City Symphony, so you did write something for them.
I wrote something for Kansas City. I've been working with the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra, and I have a commission right now from the Aspen Music Festival and the Los Angeles Philharmonic. So
you do?
The LA Phil will be premiering a piece in September at the Hollywood Bowl.
Oh, that's fantastic. You've also had your work at the Iris Chamber.
Iris Orchestra in Tennessee. My work's
Is that in Tennessee?
Yeah, it's in Germantown, Tennessee. Yes.
And the brass quintet?
I've worked with the American Brass Quintet. My music has been performed in Europe. I mean, I have performances.
What happens, say, with the brass quintet? Do you just compose for those instruments?
Yeah, so
Or
generally,
the whole orchestra, or what?
No, so what happens normally for a classical composer? We essentially make a living off of commissions. So an organization will approach you. In this case, the American Brass Quintet wanted a work. And that was actually also commissioned by the Aspen Music Festival. And so they said, we want you to write a work for the American Brass Quintet. It's a 5-person ensemble. So I knew I was only going to be writing for those instruments. But when an orchestra approaches you, normally they'll say, we'd like a 15 to 20-minute piece, and that's all they would tell you.
And they don't tell you what style, what anything?
No,
How do they know?
It's very different from a film score.
Oh, yes, with a film score you do know, or with the stage, like we're going to talk about this play that you've written the music for. But what do you do then? Just sit there and start playing?
Yeah, that's the beauty of writing concert music. You have complete artistic control and freedom to really do whatever you want. It's your job to write the best piece of music that you can create. You
said that you make a living doing that, but you also teach at UCLA.
I teach part-time at UCLA, and I also teach privately. I love to teach composition.
And who do you teach?
Because of John Corigliano and Beezer, they were such great mentors to me. I've always felt that I wanted to return the favor, and you also learn so much from your students.
That's what they say, but do you really?
Absolutely. Because it's very easy when you're working on your own piece of music to get trapped into this little room, and it's hard to see beyond the walls.
But when you teach privately, maybe you.
Well, when you teach privately, when you look at someone else's music, you can immediately see what can be improved.
Yeah,
and,
right.
And that then helps you when you're working on your own music to just remove yourself from the equation and try to look at the bigger picture.
But what happens when you've got a big class full of students? Or are the classes that big? I don't know how big they are.
I was teaching undergrad composition last year, and I think there are 5 students in the class.
Oh, so it's
that's
still
more
small.
of a master class scenario. But
see.
if you're teaching orchestration, you may have a larger class. And then, of course, if you're teaching music theory, then you'll have a much larger class. Well, that's a different type of teaching.
And you have to know all the instruments. You have to be able to write for all the instruments, right?
Yeah, especially when you're teaching orchestration and when you're writing for orchestra. Yeah, you in theory have to know how everything works.
So I thought one of the interesting things was you talked about your father composing TV music and film music and all of that. And you wrote your thesis on Thomas Newman. That's a big show business family, isn't it?
The Newman family is certainly, they are a legacy in Hollywood.
And tell us who they all are.
Well, it starts with his father, Alfred Newman.
Alfred was Thomas's father?
Oh, yeah. I mean, in many ways, he still is considered the greatest film composer of all time. I think John Williams now has the same number of nominations, like 45 or 46 nominations, but I believe Alfred Newman won 10 Oscars.
Wow.
Or 5, or maybe 5.
Well, whatever he won.
Whatever it is, he won more Oscars than anyone. So, and then there's Thomas, there's his older brother David, his sister Maria, he has a cousin, I think, Joseph, and his uncle Lionel was the president of Fox Music.
Oh, and Randy?
Randy's a cousin.
So it's a big family.
Yeah.
And they've been in show business. Was it fun writing about that?
Yeah, well, I really just focused on Tom and his music and was able to study his scores, but I met with him and I was able to sit in on a recording session for one of his film scores. But for me, his music was or really still is in many ways, pretty influential. So I wanted to get to know him and his music. So he was very generous and agreed to meet with me, and I was able to write my dissertation on
That's fantastic. And from there, you're now composing for the stage for Janine Salinas, who happens to be your wife, who's written a play about, I don't know, what is it, spacey thing?
Well, she when we first met at an artist colony, the McDowell Colony in New Hampshire, which is the oldest artist colony in America, where Copeland, Bernstein, Thornton Wilder all resided. And when we met, she told me that the type of theater she likes to write she used the term magical realism. So the Anatomy of Gazellas, it's based on this young girl named Alex who is pregnant and is living in this transitional home for women, for teenage girls. But in order for her to escape, she escapes to this fantasy world that's inhabited by these gazellas, which are half human and half gazelle-like. So these are women with horns. And so it's this sort
It's
of
kind of
virtual
spacey.
world. Yeah,
Was
it's
I
spacey.
right?
Yeah, it's definitely, it's worldly.
But it's all women, the cast.
Yes, the cast is all women.
So you were lucky to come in and be able to write the music.
Well, yes. Well, so I mean, I really have such a minor role. I was asked to create a song, a hymn that the cast performs. The Playwrights Arena actually has a sound designer who was doing sound design. So there's really not much incidental music. I literally just contributed by this one song.
And where is it? The play?
Oh, the play is at the Atwater Village Theater Complex.
And it's a big complex. It's easy to park, and it's
easy to park. Good restaurants nearby.
I know.
A lot of different artistic events happening in the area. It's a good community.
Have you conducted anything there? Have you worked there before?
I have not worked there. I have seen an opera there.
Oh, you have?
Yes.
Have you written any operas?
I have not.
Have
One
you
day.
thought about it?
I have. I'm more interested. I will certainly write an opera at some point in time, but I think my next project will probably be a concerto.
And how long do you think that will take you to write?
Well, most pieces, I usually try to give myself up to a year for each piece I write, depending on the length. I just wrote a large-scale work for the Kansas City Symphony, essentially a 21st century pictures at an exhibition. And it's a 28-minute work, and it took me 11 months to write.
Wow. But and what do you do for each person in the orchestra? Do you have to write?
Yeah,
You have to write
there's the process when you're creating a score. I mean, you have the score that the conductor reads off of, but within the score, for a traditional full-size orchestra, you as the composer are responsible for 35 different parts.
Wow.
Because you have your 3 flutes, your 3 oboes, your 3 clarinets, all the way down the score. So you write every part into the score, and then you extract that into an individual part. So I would give the principal flute player his or her part.
And how do you know? Do you play that part for yourself so you can hear it?
Through experience, first of all, you have to learn to trust yourself.
Okay.
Then it's your job to make sure that what you're writing is idiomatic. It can't be impossible to play, but I certainly believe in challenging the players. You want to write music that I think is challenging yet rewarding.
Oh, wow.
But you need to make sure that it can theoretically work. But really, so much of it lives in your head, and you don't know how it's truly going to sound until you relinquish control and let them bring it to life. And that's also the beauty of that collaboration.
That's what they were saying at Disney Hall the other night when the composers from the Brooklyn group that were here, they were going like, oh, they played it so well, you know? Like, they were surprised, but it was something that...
Well, they were so excited because they were able to have the LA Phil play their pieces.
That's what I mean. It's pretty big.
It's huge. So for many of them, that was really one of the most incredible moments they've had so far in their career.
But Kansas City Symphony, I mean, all those orchestras are big, aren't they?
They're all big, and Kansas City has probably one of the finest concert halls, well, certainly one of the finest, if not the finest concert hall in America now.
Oh, great.
Designed by the same acoustician who designed Disney Hall.
Mr.
Toyota.
Yeah. Mr. Toyota, Takayo. Mr. Toyota, yeah.
So
it is.
It's a gorgeous hall. So the symphony, Kansas City Symphony, sounds fantastic. And the LA Phil is just one of the best orchestras, period.
Okay, when your piece is in Kansas City, let me know, because I want to come see the hall.
Well, you can come on May 9th. They're playing another piece of mine.
It's too soon. Will it happen again?
Probably not for a while. I've been their composer in residence this season, so they've played all of my music throughout the season. So they probably won't program me for a little while.
No, they're going to program you again. Thank you, Adam. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching this part of the show, and we'll be right back with Dougie Fields. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. We're here on location at the Hollywood Museum on Highland Avenue. And I'm with artist Dougie Fields, who was born and raised in the English countryside. He studied architecture at the Regent
Street Polytechnic School of Architecture.
Thank you. You say that for me.
Where I didn't last a year.
Yes, well, it was a very short stint, wasn't it?
Very short stint.
And why was that?
The first day there, they sent us out sketching. They came back, we had a public crit, they put it all up. They got to mine last, singled me out, said, this is the best drawing here, but it's useless for an architecture student. Go to art school. They told me that on the first day.
Is that right? And that was it?
No, I stayed for best part of
But
a
I mean,
year
that was
before
the
I
way
left.
they critiqued you, go to
Yes.
art school?
First day,
But they were right.
yes.
They were right. And so then you went to Chelsea School of Art, where in your final year, I guess, you won a scholarship to the United States?
I won a scholarship I could go anywhere in the world. It was a traveling scholarship. But
Why?
I
How was
chose-
that? How was that?
It was open to all the art colleges in London, and they selected who they wanted to put in. Each art college got to select 2 students, and I won.
That was great. And you chose to come here?
I chose to come to America.
And where did you go?
But let me tell you the story.
Okay.
It's a good story. It was, you had an interview, and there were all these other students waiting, and they were saying, well, I want to go here and study so-and-so. I want to go here and study so-and-so. And I didn't have a clue. And I went into the interview and I said, well, I'd like to go to Rome, but it's 1968. I didn't say that, but it was 1968, and there were riots.
Oh.
So I said, I don't want to go to Rome because there's riots. I don't want to go to Paris because there's riots. And I'd really like to go to New York, but I think there's riots there too. And they said, you just want the money, don't you? And I said, yes. And I got the money. And I did go to New York, and I woke up the first morning there to a riot in the street outside.
Just what you said.
Just what I said.
So anywhere you would have gone, though, it could have been the same thing. Did you know anyone in New York?
I came with 2 phone numbers, and I hadn't forewarned them.
Oh, you're
And
kidding.
I came with a female companion, and I don't know. I mean, I'm speechless at the thought that I did that, but I did that.
And how many years ago was that? 30 years?
1968.
Okay, so much longer than that.
And then we-
45 years.
Yes, and then we drove across with people we met on a bus, in an overloaded car, and we got stopped by police at gunpoint every day because there were too many people in the car.
Oh, wow.
And we spent a week driving across. Part of it was fabulous and part of it was a nightmare.
How long was the scholarship for?
It was as long as the money lasted.
Oh,
All I had to do was give them a painting and write something about my journey. And came to California. I think Balboa was where I ended up.
Balboa Island?
Yes.
But Newport to
Yes.
Balboa?
Somebody gave me a phone number in New York and said, call them up. And they said, oh, come and stay, and gave me my first acid trip.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
In Balboa?
In Balboa. It was a mansion with a lift inside, but the next door neighbors were 2 foot away.
Exactly.
I was so shocked.
Exactly.
So shocked.
There was no land, right?
No land. Right on the beach, though, so it was...
Oh, what an experience.
Then I flew up to San Francisco and stayed just off Haight-Ashbury, which was knife-in-the-back territory there. The year after the Summer of Love, it was so scary. And then I flew back to New York, which I'd hated the first two weeks. And when I got back, I just thought, this is home. I loved it.
Oh, then you loved it. Did you
Absolutely
stay?
loved it. I stayed till the money ran out. I got a job that I could come back to even, working for Bert Stern. And
Bert Stern, the photographer?
yes, Bert Stern was opening a store on First Avenue selling artist products, and I was going to be working the store, and then they could do my products later on, but I never got the money to come back.
But were you painting as you were traveling through
No,
the U.S.?
no.
What were you doing? Just taking acid trips, having a good time,
Yeah.
meeting
Yes.
hippies in San Francisco?
Yes. Oh,
Well-
and I had a great time. I mean, I saw Janis Joplin. I saw who did I see? Jefferson Airplane. I saw various Pink Floyd members who I'd shared flats with in New York and L.A.
But then you ended up with a Pink Floyd.
Yes, I'd already
Flatmate
I'd
in
already
London.
had them before, though. They were students at architecture school with me.
Oh, they
So
were.
They were my flatmates who had a band who rehearsed at home, and I thought
Sid Barrett?
Sid Barrett and Roger Waters,
Oh, both of them.
both lived in
And you still are in the same flat in Earl's Court.
that I got with Sid after he'd left the band and after I came back from America.
But did you think of, were you painting them? Were you doing
I was
anything with
painting
them?
before I went, and I painted as soon as I got back. I couldn't actually paint in America. I didn't have space. I didn't have my own
Yes,
place. you know.
yeah,
And I
right.
don't really sketch, and it was before. I didn't even have a camera.
Oh.
I didn't even have a camera.
But
But I met all Zandra's American friends before I knew her.
Zandra Rhodes.
Yes.
Mhm.
I met them in New York, but I didn't know her.
Oh, you didn't know her at
No,
the time?
and I didn't know they were her friends. It was only later on that I met her, and it was like, but I met these people in New York who are her best friends.
And we're all still best friends.
Small world, you see.
We're all still best friends. Your work went from minimal to conceptual to hard edge pop, and you've exhibited all over Europe, the U.S., India, Japan, and you're here again in the U.S. for Brit Week.
For Brit Week for Amanda Eliash, who you're going to meet on the weekend, who's a collector, and she's having a showcase for various artists and an opera singer who happens to be her son, and a fashion show by Pam Hogg.
So what will you be doing?
She's got work of mine, so it's on the wall, and then there's going to be video. I've been doing digital animation to music, where I've written the music, I've done the words, and I've sort of animated the images too.
Well, we've come then. Is this an influence from the Pink Floyd days, from the music days? Because you're now doing a lot of music, a lot of videos.
I always loved music, but I never thought I could make it. But once I got a computer and started learning software, I used to be the one who chose the music. I was the DJ. I was the one who had the new records. I started making little mixtapes. Then, once I got more into the computer, I started learning how to put things together. And I do it visually.
But were you ever musical? Did you ever play an instrument?
I started to learn the piano. I nearly was a ballet dancer.
But that doesn't count.
But it means that music's in me.
Yeah, you have the movement and the feeling.
I don't understand how to read music. I did have a brief sort of lessons as a child, but didn't stick.
So you do an album cover. You do the art for that, or you do the art for the videos, and it's very.
And I do the music too.
And you do the music
and
too.
And I do the engineering. That's the tricky thing, sort of getting your mind around the software.
So once you discovered the computer, your whole life and your whole background changed. Your art background changed.
It expanded me, and now, did you talk about Luciana with Ian?
No, I didn't.
Oh, because it was through Luciana's death that I got my first computer.
Ah.
And
Luciana,
who was one of the great presences in my life, an artist who did your portrait and did Ian's portrait.
Ian Buchanan, yes. And Luciana's last name?
Sadly died of Luciana Martinez de la Rosa, and she sadly died age 47 in New York of meningitis, and I inherited some money from her, and I bought my first computer with it.
And so that expanded you?
That completely changed my work.
But when you look at your work, and I've looked at your work for years, I've never realized that there was an architectural bent to it. There are lines and squares. And
I've always used graph paper.
Yes, that's interesting.
I use straight lines. I use a grid. On my paintings, I use a set square, a T-square that I've had since architecture school.
So it is influenced that way.
And before I got a computer, I did all my studies on graph paper and tracing paper layers on top. When I got a computer and I realized you could put up a grid and put layers on top, and that was how the computer worked.
But when you were using the grid and you were using papers, it was so slow.
It was slow, and also, if I wanted to change my mind, it took a long time to redo the whole thing, whereas now I can redo it on the computer really easily and have infinite variations.
That's what I mean. Is it much faster working on the computer for you, or do you still have to worry about each layer as it goes?
You know, the new canvas I'm doing, I did it on computer first. I spent maybe 3 months on the computer study, and I had over 100 different variations before I thought, this is the image. And then I started on canvas.
Then how do you do it? Do you just do the grid again and use the...
Yeah, just like I always did.
You don't transfer it onto the canvas.
I grid it up. I've always gridded it up. I quite like the manual process. And I like it on screen. And
you
like
don't
it on project.
Project, no, that's what I meant.
I tried projecting, and I like to repeat the image over and over again, and I know how it feels. And it's a feeling. I have to like the feeling.
So it's one thing that you can do on canvas, starting with the computer. It's going back to the same old-fashioned thing that you did before the computer.
Except some things stay on computer and some things get output from the computer onto canvas or onto paper, or they stay on screen.
Well, you
Then
have a
some
big...
of them on screen become animated.
Oh, you do animation too?
I'm learning, yeah.
So does that go with the music?
Yes. It didn't. The music started separately, and the animation was something I thought, I can't tackle that. It's too hard to get one's mind around, and sometimes I think it's so much to think about.
But this is so much of reinventing yourself over and over, right?
It's a creative buzz, and there was a creative buzz when I started, so that's the thing one wants to hold on to.
Was the creativity of it, but it's like, I don't know, it's like a reinvention. It's like you keep pop culture alive.
I've actually gone back to my old images and recreated some of them digitally too, and then incorporated them in new ways in this new media.
Do they fit in? Do they have that?
I make them fit in. I've done what I consider like history paintings, where I've got things from different decades and I've put them together, and I make it work as a new image.
And talking about that image, your image was one of the first with makeup.
Yes,
wouldn't you say?
Yes.
With makeup and hair design.
Except, my father wore makeup.
No.
My father powdered his face and he did something to his hair, but my father was a pharmacist, a very straightforward man, and it wasn't uncommon in the 30s for men to do that.
Is that right?
Yes. It's not as new as we think, by a long shot.
So,
my father, who was very straight and very conventional,
right,
had face powder, but he sold it, you see. So it was kind of...
So he was using it, but did he use pencil?
I don't know what he used on his hair, but I was too young to sort of think this was unusual. To me it was normal.
Did they just accept what you were doing?
No, absolutely not.
Isn't that funny?
But it was the long hair was the big thing in the early 60s, when one grew, and my hair was your length, and this was considered shocking. My mother's sisters would say, if we saw you walking down the street, we'd want to cross the road.
But then you were using pencil.
I started using that sort of about 62, and influenced by other people. It wasn't...
Oh, you were?
Yes, I saw other people and I thought, they look cool, I want to look cool. And there were these people called modernists, not mods, modernists. It was a very short art school related movement from South London. And the guys backcombed their hair, wore pan stick and coal around their eyes, and had Cuban heeled shoes. And velvet, wore velvet.
And that sounds very dandy and very attractive to me.
It was to me. And I'd come up from the country, and I thought, these people are interesting, and I didn't fit in where I was, and I saw these people, and I thought, I want to be like them.
So tell me how you feel from yesterday to today, like just being an artist, painting, to today, being on your computer, making music, doing things like that. How is that balance in your life?
Well, first off, I think it's a privileged life because I can do what I want creatively every day. And I have things on the computer that I'm working on in one room, and things on canvas that I'm working on in another room. Sometimes the room with the canvas takes dominance. Sometimes the room with the computer takes dominance. And sometimes I think I'm scared to start something because it's on the computer, because I think, I want to start a new piece of music. But that's the scariest one, because I really don't know what I'm doing. But I do know that I'm producing something that I enjoy, and that a lot of other people say, I really love that.
So you've got, the public is behind you. Public knows what you're doing in there.
I would say the public don't know, but a few people do know. I have a lot of Facebook followers, but I don't market the music yet. Maybe I will, but I haven't yet. So I have a certain internet presence.
So that's coming.
Yeah.
Dougie, thanks for being with us today.
Joan, lovely to see you.
I'm so glad you're in LA. It's
so
like old times.
It's been too long.
And we're glad that you watched us today. Keep writing to JAQUINN1 at AOL.com or 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles 90017. And we continue to answer your emails, so keep writing.